Super Mario Maker 2 acts as a level designer tool so players can create levels based on the Mario series. 5 games are included as options to build levels around: Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, New Super Mario Bros. U, and Super Mario 3D World. While many elements are faithfully brought over from each of the games to function within this game, there are several elements that have been changed for one reason or another from how they originally worked in the games they come from. Today, I want to take a look at what some of these items are, what changed about them, why they might have changed, and if I think the change was for the better. Some items were changed to better work within the game's editor, some were changed to fit more closely with the other game styles, and some others were changed to personally hurt my feelings. I'm not going to go over every change because there are quite a lot, but I will cover what I find to be the most interesting. A lot of these changes were taken from the Mario Maker 2 wiki, so huge shoutouts to them for compiling a lot of these changes. With that said, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and let's take a look at the changes to the original Super Mario Bros. Style. One of the biggest changes between the original Super Mario Bros. And the style within Mario Maker are how the semi-solids, lifts, and mushroom platforms work. In Mario Maker, all of these platforms allow Mario to stand on top of them, however they also let Mario jump through them from the bottom. This is a very interesting mechanic and one that I like a lot, however that's not how these always worked. While yes, you could stand on top of them of course in the original game, jumping through them is a bit more impossible. Now, why were these changed? Well, I think that's pretty simple. They likely wanted these platforms to act the same way between all the main game styles. I mean, ever since Mario 3, these platforms behave like they do in Mario Maker, meaning Super Mario Bros. Would have been the odd man out here. Personally, I'm really glad these were changed. Maybe it's just because I've gotten used to these mechanics, but I find it really hard to go back to the original Super Mario Bros. With its semi-solids being, well, just solid. The levels in the trees just feel so much more crowded with the treetops and lifts acting as solid blocks, not to mention the countless times I've tried to jump through a lift during a Bowser fight, only to break Mario's skull and land on top of Bowser. So overall, I find this change to just be a straight up improvement. An interesting addition that actually wasn't present in the first Mario Maker is the fact that small Mario can now crouch. This goes for the Mario 3 style too, so I figured we might as well talk about this now. This barely affects gameplay at all, especially considering they didn't even bother to do this for the first Mario Maker. I have two main theories as to why they may have added this. For one, maybe they just wanted Mario's crouch to be consistent between all styles. My second theory is that since they added slopes, they wanted Mario 3 Small Mario to be able to slide down them. And since that'd leave just the Super Mario Bros. Style without an option to crouch while small, they decided to give him a crouch too. No matter what the reason though, this is a cute little change that I do like. It's especially nice as it gives me something to do on a long, boring auto-scroll level. I mean, look at Mario go- Oh. Guess I should have been paying attention. Well anyways, the last bit of changes I want to cover for the original Super Mario Bros. Style are a few sprite changes. First off, the springs look entirely different, which I'm assuming was done to make them fit in a one block space. I personally prefer the look of the Mario Maker spring, so we're doing pretty good so far. The main sprite changer though has to be Luigi. While his main look is pretty much the same, he got an extremely different look for his Fire Flower costume. This is because in the original game, it was exactly the same as Mario, and with multiplayer versus now being a thing, they likely changed it so that people wouldn't be confused as to who is who. But the last sprite change is easily the most tragic and our first change of the video that I find to be a downgrade. In the original Super Mario Bros., if you went to an underground stage, the Goombas would adopt a brand new color scheme. Instead of being brown, they would now be a dark blue. This always looked really cool to me, but for whatever reason, this was not carried over for Mario Maker. Now, no matter what theme they're in, Goombas will be their plain old brown look. Why they didn't bother to bring these guys over, I'll never know. No matter what the reason though, I'll never be content with this change. If Nintendo does not bring back the blue Goombas for Mario Maker 3, I will probably cry more. I don't know, let's just move on to Mario 3. Comparatively, Mario 3 doesn't have as much interesting stuff to talk about, however there were two items that I did want to focus on. First is the absolute worst power-up in the game. No matter what you commenters say, I won't stop saying it, it's the frog suit. The first big change to the power-up was letting anyone using it run on water. In order to do this, you have to be holding an item while maintaining a high speed. This leads to some, kind of interesting levels. Again, I still think this power-up is stupid. I mean, hey, this is a good change, it lets it be slightly more useful without making it overpowered, but it's nothing groundbreaking. Another extra ability given to the frog suit was letting Mario be able to crouch while using it, which in turn also let him slide down slopes. Certainly another good change, but again, it's nothing really worth getting excited about. The final frog suit change I thought was interesting enough to point out was with how it works in multiplayer. Normally when Mario wears the frog suit in Mario 3 and in Mario Maker 2 single player, he'll be green. That obviously makes sense considering it's a frog. However, since multiplayer is once again a huge aspect of this game, and Luigi's main color is green, they had to change Mario's costume when multiple players are on screen. So instead of being green in multiplayer, it'll be red. I do actually quite like how this looks, and I think I might even prefer the red design. Also, this isn't really a difference from source material or anything, but I thought I should mention that a similar thing also happens with the Master Sword power-up. Again, this was all done to make sure Mario and Luigi look different. The other big item that I thought got interesting changes was my boy, Dry Bones. Dry Bones for Smash. There were two main changes here. For one, Dry Bones can now be defeated by a Tanuki tail. Not that anyone would want to defeat Dry Bones though. Let's get this guy out of here. But the better change was the fact that Dry Bones will now turn around at ledges instead of falling off of them. This means my boy will live a little longer as he won't go the way of a Goomba and walk off into a pit. Now I think both of these changes were likely added in order to make the Dry Bones act like he does in the other styles, and I think they're both good changes. Well, okay, the one where he turns around on ledges is good. You saw what happened with Toad, don't hurt Dry Bones. But that's it for Mario 3, at least the stuff that I found to be interesting. Let's take a look at the game with the most amount of changes I wanted to highlight, Super Mario World. The big highlight of Super Mario World was Yoshi, as this was his introduction to the series. As Yoshi was a big part of Mario World, he did receive a pretty big focus, and that includes some new changes. First off is something that has always annoyed me about the original game. For some reason, Yoshi's arms were orange. Why? I mean, they're green on the box art and literally in every other appearance, so luckily they fixed this for Mario Maker. Man, it looks so much better. For a change that I don't think is much of an improvement, we have the fact that red shells no longer give Yoshi the ability to spit out fire. In the original Mario World, Koopa shells were used to give Yoshi special abilities. Green did nothing, red let Yoshi spit out fireballs, blue let Yoshi fly, and yellow let Yoshi do an earthquake thing. This was entirely scrapped in Mario Maker 2. Now Yoshi will just spit out the shell no matter what color it is. If I were to guess, this was likely done because blue and yellow shells aren't in Mario Maker at all, but I feel like they still could have kept the red shell special ability. One last change to Yoshi though, and it's back to being a good one. In Mario World, if Yoshi had an item in his mouth for too long, he'd swallow it, which was super annoying, especially if that item you had was a blue shell. In Mario Maker though, Yoshi won't swallow, which makes him significantly more fun to use, especially with how complex Mario Maker levels can be where you need to bring items from one place to another. Next I want to take a look at what might be the most changed power-up in the entire lineup, the P-Balloon. The concept is similar between the original and Mario Maker 2 version, but the execution is completely different. For one, the original P-Balloon was on a timer, meaning after a few seconds, Mario would be reverted back to normal, whereas in Mario Maker 2, Mario can keep the power-up until he takes damage. How Mario looks with the power-up is also pretty different, now sporting a P on his overalls as opposed to just being a balloon version of himself like he was in the original. This power-up even controls completely different as well. The original was much more slow-moving and you couldn't turn Mario at all, whereas the Mario Maker 2 version gives the player much more control. It even allows Mario to boost in any direction he wants. Heck, even how the power-up itself moves is different, where it's mostly stationary in Mario Maker 2 as opposed to the original floating away once released from a block. Overall, this might just be the single most changed item in the entire game. But was it for the better? Honestly, yeah, it definitely was. This is pretty fun to use now where the original just kinda sucked. That's also my theory as to why this power-up is so different, just simply to make it more fun. Genuinely, I wonder if there's anyone that prefers the original version over this version. The updated one lends itself to the Maker series much better as it opens up for much more air-based levels. So yeah, they did a great job of improving this guy, zero complaints from me. A few enemies also received some fairly significant changes when coming over to Mario Maker 2. In Mario World, grinders, lava bubbles, and boos could all be spin jumped on, whereas that's no longer the case in Mario Maker 2. Maybe it's just because I'm used to the Mario Maker way of things, but it definitely felt weird that you could spin jump on these guys in Mario World. I mean, Mario, you're jumping on lava, how are you not at least a little hurt by that? The next change has to do with the Pokies, where they can now be defeated by fireballs. This was definitely added to make it consistent with the other styles, which again I do think is a good thing. But the biggest enemy change comes to the main man himself, Bowser, who looks and acts completely differently than how he did in the original game. In Mario World, Bowser's entire boss fight has him in the clown car, and since Bowser can obviously be outside of it in Mario Maker, they needed to change him to be able to fight on the ground. Personally, I think they did a great job with him. I've heard a lot of people say they don't like how this Bowser sprite looks, but I don't know, it's one of my personal favorite sprites for the character. It's not as cool as Cool Bowser though. But yeah, I find this to be an improvement, but I can definitely understand if somebody likes the original more. I mean, these two Bowsers basically act completely differently. The final Mario World change I wanted to highlight for this video has to do with Checkpoint. The checkpoints in Mario World were modeled to look like the end goal, whereas in Mario Maker, they take on their flag appearance in order to stay in line with the other styles. Personally, I greatly prefer the flag look, but this one comes down to personal preference. That's it for Mario World. Let's take a look at the final main style, New Super Mario Bros. U. First, we'll start off with something that I actually didn't even know you could do. Big dry bones can normally only be knocked down to the ground by a ground pound. However, Mario Maker 2 added the ability to spin jump on them to knock them down as well. Well, Toadette, you saw what happened with Toad. Shouldn't have done that. Another enemy I wanted to take a look at is the Pokey once again. In Mario U, these guys were able to take on a more fruit-like appearance in time with the music. This was just a charming little detail that I liked, which was sadly removed in Mario Maker. It was probably done to keep them consistent between styles, but it's still kind of lame. Another detail that I thought was kind of cute in Mario U was the fact that bullet bills could actually collide with each other and shift their positions. In Mario Maker though, they just phase right through each other. Again, pretty lame. The final enemy thing I wanted to mention is the fact that Yoshi can now eat Hammer Bros. That's pretty neat, I guess. The other three changes I wanted to talk about deal more with Mario himself. First off, instead of picking up items above his head, Mario will now hold them to the side like in other styles. This change definitely makes sense. I do think I like him holding stuff over his head more animation-wise, but I'm certainly not going to complain about this change. The other two changes though are much more negative for me. These relate to the theme's unique power-ups, the Propeller Mushroom, and Super Acorn. First off, for the Propeller Mushroom, while it does act mostly the same, there's one big thing that the Mario Maker version is missing. In the original game, you were actually able to wall jump after propelling upwards, which made this power-up a lot more fun to use. The Mario Maker version just feels so much clunkier in comparison, so this is definitely a downgrade. Not even sure why they would have changed this. As for the Super Acorn, one really neat thing you could do with it was after using the tall spin jump, you would be able to start gliding. This led to a lot of fun movement in Mario U, but as you can guess, this feature was cut from Mario Maker. Now you have to land back on the ground if you want to start a glide, which again feels super clunky if you knew how the original worked. Wow, Mario U did not have a great transition to Mario Maker, huh? Well, let's hope that the changes with our last game style, 3D World, are a little bit better. First, let's start off with some enemy changes. The Charvar got super nerfed between games, as in the original 3D World, it acted as a one-hit KO, whereas in Mario Maker, it only deals a single hit. I'm gonna guess he was changed since there's a lot less space to avoid it in 2D, and I definitely appreciate this change. I mean, the Charvarg enemy sucks as is, can you imagine if they were even worse? On the other hand though, the Thwomps got a buff. In 3D World and most other 3D Mario games, instead of activating when Mario gets nearby, they move up and down on a set timer. This definitely works better for a 3D space, but since Mario Maker is of course in 2D, the thwomps here were reverted to how they work in the 2D games. Personally, I find the thwomps in the 3D games to be too easy to deal with, so this is definitely an improvement. The final enemy change is to do more with the clear pipes. In 3D World, if Mario collided with an enemy there, he'd take damage, whereas in Mario Maker, he'll just pass right by them. This change was probably made due to the fact that you can't have split paths and clear pipes anymore, so there'd be way less ways to dodge anything flying at your face. This is another thing that I think is a good change, though I'll be honest, I didn't actually know it was a thing. I've been avoiding enemies in clear pipes for like the entire lifespan of this game, so that was a nice waste of time. Well anyways, let's see if this energy can be kept up for the remaining few changes. Fireballs in 3D World used to be able to bounce off of walls, however now they'll just disappear when they hit them. While it's certainly a nerf, this change needed to happen. Having the fireballs bounce off of walls in 2D would make the power-up far too overpowered, so I think this change makes sense. The other two changes though are not so good for me. First off, you can no longer enter into shells, which you could do in the original game. I see absolutely no other reason for this to be cut other than laziness. I mean, it would have been neat to have this considering the shellments didn't make it over to 3D World at all. The other change though is just really hurtful. One of my favorite ways to move in 3D World was with what's known as a rolling long jump. To perform it, Mario would need to roll and then long jump. Pretty self-explanatory. This led to a nice boost of speed that made traversing the game much more fun. Mario Maker 2 though, completely cut this. The thing is, I have no clue why. They still have the long jump, and heck, they even have the roll despite it being basically useless, so why not combine them? It'd make running through 3D World levels so much more interesting. Now it just feels so much slower in comparison for me. If a Mario Maker 3 is going to be made, then I really hope this movement option is added back in. But anyways, that's it for this video. Are you all mad at me that I didn't mention that Mario World bonsai bills now leave a trail of clouds behind them? Let me know in the comments. This was actually a really fun video for me to make, so I do hope you all enjoy it as much as I did making it. Now to the Mario Odyssey moon ranking updates. Editing has begun. I'm working really hard to get it done as soon as possible. I did sadly have to delay it because I got the cough virus and I couldn't really record any audio, but now I'm feeling all better and I'm hard to work at it. If you want more frequent updates, check on the community tab. But anyways, dry bones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.